Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku could control and manipulate plants? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Katsuki, I'm serious. This isn't fun anymore. Leave him alone. You said, for about the umpteenth time that afternoon. Unbeknownst to 5-year-old you, the angry blonde did in fact not leave him alone, and would in fact continue to torment the green-haired boy for years to come. With tears rolling down your cheeks, you clung onto Deku with a grip that would make even All Might Japan's #1 hero shudder. Despite snotty-nosed and face dampened with salty tears, Deku clung back onto you, seemingly unable to face Bakugo. Hugging onto you like you were the last anchor on Earth. The last one keeping him chained to the ground. Gritting your teeth with anger at Bakugo's harsh actions, you gingerly get back up on your feet. There's no actual evidence he is quirkless. There's still a chance, he's just a late bloomer dash. A soft hand gripped your own, you looked down at Deku, still on the floor, with a resigned look on his face. It's okay, name. I'm quirkless, I've accepted it. With a grin of malicious intent, Bakugo, or rather, Kaken, the nickname the boy despised, gifted to him by the one and only Deku, continued to tease the two children with the crackle and hiss of the explosions being emitted from his palm. Shut up. It's about DM time. Deku realizes his true place in society, don't you think? Rolling his eyes with renewed vigor, he beckoned the girl to his side. Name. With our quirks, we will easily make it into the top 5 in Japan. Don't you get it? Sticking by the quirkless wonder will get you nowhere. Let's go already. You sighed. He wasn't lying. And you knew that. Since you discovered your quirk was chlorokinesis, the psychic ability to control and manipulate plants, you've received numerous compliments from classmates and teachers alike. Since then, you've developed a keen interest in becoming a hero. Numerous nights spent staying up late watching All Might videos online with Deku or practicing new moves with Bakugo. However, unlike Bakugo, you didn't let the power get to your head. Eyes widening, Deku clung onto you tighter, hell-bent in keeping his true friend Name safe by his side. Fortunately for Deku and unfortunately for Bakugo, Name was seemingly adamant on staying true to her moral code. I'm staying with Deku. Not because I need to, but because I want to. I want to stay here with him because I believe quirkless or not Deku will become an amazing hero, surpassing both of us. You say, loud and clear, looking directly into Bakugo's eyes, allowing him to understand the sincerity of your statement. Both sets of eyes from both boys locked onto you in that moment. Deku's eyes widened, possibly in admiration or in gratitude or in something more. Needless to say, it was an emotion that the boy had never felt before. Not for anyone. Bakugo, on the other hand, seethed in anger. Seriously? She was siding with him? After another 12 minutes of being berated and mocked by Bakugo, he eventually gave Deku one last glare fueled with disgust. Then back at Name, a slight hint of betrayal in his eyes. His arm began to rise over his head, hands stretched open, quirk ready to be activated. But before striking, he saw the gentle look on your face. The vulnerability you held, and the fact that he knew you wouldn't stop him from attacking you. So with a resigned huff, he didn't attack. By attacking you, he would be destroying your affection for him. His sense of self. Choosing Deku over me is a mistake. Enjoy mediocrity. His arm dropped to his side. Defeated. Unable to look at you, he left. Almost ashamed he ever raised his arm at you, leaving the other two still huddled together on the floor. You glanced slightly at Deku as if wary of him. Her feelings, a complicated mix of concern and affection for her friend. I always drag you into my messes. Name. I don't want Kaken to hurt you too. I know he wouldn't lay a finger on you, but I'm scared that one day he will and it'll be my fault. His endless mumbling of words began spurting out of his mouth per usual, nervously unable to look directly into your eyes. His face still burnt from his blushing from earlier. You grabbed his face with your hands determinedly, gently encouraging him to look you in the eyes. Whatever I did today that helped you against Katsuki, I did because I wanted to. He might hurt me one day, but that'll be because I wanted it to happen. I want to be there for you." A warm wave of understanding washed over the two of them. Deku allowed himself to loosen up, resting his head against your soft palm as his body ached with the bruises that Bakugo gifted him. "Name, if my world was on fire, no one could save me but you." Slowly, she helped him up, slipping an arm under his. "No need to worry, Deku. Here, I'll be your crutch." Once Deku giggled. Name recorded it as a win, deeming that the day had a positive ending. He slowly shied away from you, face flushed and fist clenched. "Did you really mean it?" He stammers, voice barely audible. She frowns, twirling round to stand right in front of him, blocking his view of the rest of the playground before planting each hand on either of his shoulders. "Are you doubting it? Deku, you are one of my closest friends. Bakugo is my friend too, but if it means he's hurting you, then I'll do everything in my power to make you okay again." With a small smile and a reassured nod from Deku, Name escorted him back to his house. With Deku still being unable to look at you the entire way and his face flushed for the entire journey, you didn't bother trying to make him look at you, you were just happy your friend was okay. After the day's events, both you and Deku spent the next hour and a half performing a mediocre dance routine in order to convince Inko to let you stay the night, with you using your quirk to propel both you and Izuku into the air. The branches of the bonsai trees around the apartment grew and wrapped around your waists to throw you into the air, and then catch you again before you and Izuku landed onto the ground. The edges of her lips quirked up into a small smile. All right. Name can stay. We always love having you over." Izuku never stops crying once you leave. Izuku blushes furiously before looking at you and shaking his head. "That's not true, I swear." "I'd never do that." You giggle at him before Inko continues. "And Name, put these plants back to normal. It looks like a jungle in here, and you'll have to head home to tell your parents that you'll be sleeping over. And so that you can grab your belongings." Living 5 minutes away from the Midoriya household, 5-year-old you had no trouble sprinting back home, excited to spend the night at Izuku's. However, the somber looks of your parents' faces had somewhat dampened your cheery mood once you returned home. Tilting your head up to face them fully, you lift an eyebrow, silently asking them what was wrong. "Listen, Name, your mother got onto her knees and held your arms. Remember that little boarding school me and your daddy were talking about?" You smile and nod, ignorant to the misery you'd feel at their next few words. "Well, you see," your father starts, placing a hand on your head. "Both your mother and I believe that in order to better your education, it's important for you to study abroad." Your father looks back at your mother, eyes softening. "I know this is a scary change, but studying abroad, away from us, might be good for you." Eyebrows furrowed and pupils contracted, you look down to the floor. "But how would I see Katsuki and Izuku? I can't leave here. I have my friends and my school dash. Izuku doesn't have anyone else. I promised I'd be here for him. And I want to train with Katsuki too. If we move to Oken, what's its name, how will I, Katsuki and Izuku become pro-heroes together?" They both look at you with a look of finality and pity. With a sigh, your father began talking again. "Name, this isn't forever. Do you understand? We will return in a couple of years, just in time for you to be able to apply to the UA entrance exam when you're 15. You'll see all your friends again, I promise." You scrunched your nose and closed your eyes and did the mental math in your head. "When I'm 15. Wait, that's curse my poor math skills. If I'm 5 years old now, then that means 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. With a look of pure shock horror on your face, you snap your eyes wide open again to look at your parents. "That's like 100 years. I'll be so old and wrinkly." Don't you mean 10 years? Your mother turns to your father. "Maybe we should get her a math tutor while we're at it." Despite being a child of 5 years old with the maturity level of a parrot, you understood that this had to be done. You didn't know what debt was, but you've heard your parents talk about it long enough to understand that it probably wasn't a good thing. After a deep breath, you finally asked, "When do we leave?" "The day after tomorrow, I'm afraid. We realize this isn't fair on you. And we should have told you sooner. This information was given to us on short notice too." your mother explained. You didn't argue with them any further as you realize this is just as hard on them as it is on you. After little persuasion, your parents had agreed to let you stay the night at Izuku's. With your head hung low, you trudged back to the Midoriya household with your pajamas in one hand and your toothbrush in the other. In the first nanosecond of you entering Izuku's bedroom, you had in which fallen to your knees, dropping your belongings onto the floor and clasping your heart with dramatic flair as you cried out to him, "Izuku, you must convince your mom to adopt me right now." Izuku, who in which had been watching another All Might edit, was by your side in an instant. Name? What happened? What is it? Oh no. Did a villain kill your parents? You blink and slowly raise your head to look at him. No, it's not that bad. Then what's wrong? I promised I'd always be here to protect you. I care about you, you know. He mumbled the last sentence under his breath, half hoping you hadn't heard it. You, on the other hand, had only one thing on your mind. My parents are making me move to Okenwhat's-its-name because they want me to study at this uber fancy boarding school. And that's like 100 million miles from here. And they said we can only come back in 100 years for when I apply for UA. And we're literally leaving the day after tomorrow. So your mom has to adopt me now, or I'll probably go into cardiac arrest. As a 5-year-old, you had no idea what that was, but it sounded bad enough at the time to maybe convince Izuku to agree to persuade Inko to adopt you. Wait. You're moving? Away? Forever? From me? For the first time, Izuku's voice shook with complete sadness and despair. His tone filled with emotion far greater than any emotion he had ever felt before. Despite the constant harassment from Bakugo and the despair of finding out he was quirkless, somehow his closest friend moving away from him was far worse than any other nightmare he could ever experience. Yes. Forever. At the sight of Izuku becoming unresponsive at that word, forever, Name decided to tune down the exaggeration. Well, until I'm 15, but that's basically forever. You let out a large sigh, mostly in grief and partly in frustration. I don't want to leave you. You know that, don't you? I know your mom won't actually adopt me or whatever. I don't think we fit the sibling dynamic anyway. It would be weird. Through his tears and strained voice, Izuku let out a little giggle at your statement. Yeah, that would be weird. He then buried his face into the crook of your neck, an act of affection neither of you had done before, but somehow, it felt right. I'll always remember you, Name. I'll be counting down the days from when you leave until when you return. The night was then spent with the two of them huddled up together in the makeshift fort they had made in the middle of Izuku's room. The fort, in which, was made up of Izuku's bed sheets and some pillows stolen from the living room. And really it wasn't a fort at all, it was more of a nest of pillows and blankets arranged together in a circular shape. Since I'm going to live so far away, I have an idea of what can make us feel closer together, you whisper into his ear, disturbing the quiet hush of the night. Before giggling and rubbing his ear from the strange sensation of the whisper, he turns his face to you, noses merely centimeters apart. If it's an idea that you have come up with, I'm sure I'll like it. Tell me, Name. What if at the same time each night we both looked out at the moon from our windows? That way we know we are both looking at the same thing at the same time despite being miles away. You whisper, rather proud of yourself for coming up with that. Thankfully, the darkness of the night acted as a cover for the shade of red that overcame his features. Name. You can't just say things like that, you know. Oh shoot, did I say a swear word or something? I swear I only know DMN. Frick. My mother said it once whilst cooking and burning her finger on the stove, hee, but don't tell your mom I said that. Your frantic yapping and lousy story did not help Izuku's case. Instead, the poor boy's face turned a darker shade of red with every word you said. No, I mean about the moon. Friends don't usually say stuff like that, he mumbled, almost as if having to force the words out of his throat. I mean, if you don't want to, you began, looking rather dejected at Izuku's rejection. No. Sorry, I'd like that. I mean, the moon is beautiful. I'd love to look at it whilst thinking about you. Out of all the things he could have said, this is what came out of his mouth the easiest. As if saying something like that was almost natural for him if it was spoken to you. What about 8 p.m.? 8 p.m. is my bedtime, so I'll look at the moon right before I fall asleep so that I'll dream of you. You grin enthusiastically, clearly oblivious about the effect your words had on Izuku. He doesn't reply, but slowly held his hand close to yours before wrapping his pinky finger around yours. It's a promise. The rest of the night saunters on without another word coming from the two children. They slept silently, hands held together tightly, trying to wish away the dread of you moving away. As morning came, you decided your next mission would be to finish packing your belongings and hunt Bakugo down in order to say goodbye to him. Izuku had promised you he would wait with you on the station as you waited for your train, so you had left his home without a worry. Living in Mizutofu City meant that Name knew everyone in the area and that everyone in the area knew Name. Meaning that, for some reason, you had deemed it necessary to yell out your departure to the entire neighborhood as you made your way to the Bakugo household. Using your quirk, you had manipulated a branch of a nearby tree to ring the doorbell for you. Not only because you were too short to reach up and press it yourself, but also because most 5-year-olds are egotistical little brats. Including yourself. A still fuming Katsuki had opened the door, and after taking a long look at you, his left eye twitched, and he promptly began to shut the door in your face. Still salty because of yesterday, I see. You rammed your foot into the door and grabbed onto his shoulders with renewed determination. Katsuki. Geez, I didn't think you'd even open the door for me. Anyways, I'm sorry about yesterday, but I gotta tell you dash. He cut off your sentence, and with a smug look on his face, he leaned in closer. Oh, don't tell me, you're finally realizing I'm so much better than that goddamn nerd, right? Took you long enough. No dash? Just listen, it's important. I'm telling you because I care about why dash. Yikes, this kid really has the wrong idea. Oh, shut up. He growled at you, hatred sizzling off of him. Hatred that was in which not for you, but for the idea of you leaving him. I don't want you wasting my time like you did yesterday, Name. I'm over you. He paused and did a double take, recalling his previous words. I meant I'm over it. Not you. He then gave you another long look, to try and figure out if you had even taken note of what he had said. After realizing you were too dense to understand what he had meant, he rolled his eyes and swatted your hands off of his shoulders. Whatever. Just leave. I don't want to see you right now. You and Deku deserve each other anyway. Pathetic extras, he huffed, looking at you with a hint of betrayal in his eyes. You've made your choice, huh? Before you even had a chance to speak again, he had roughly placed his palm over your mouth. Not interested. When I'm the #1 hero, you will have wished you'd have chosen me instead. He then gave you a small, half-hearted shove that indicated to the both of that he truly couldn't ever bring himself to actually hurt you. And then, in typical Katsuki fashion, he slammed the door in your face. Mission failed. Determined to reconcile with your childhood friend, you yelled at the house insistently, whatever you say about me choosing him over you, it's not true. I'll always view you as someone special to me, whether you like it or not. With a huff and a proud nod of your head, you returned home. No matter how hard you had wished for the morning to never come, it did. As it always does. As the sun took the place of the moon, you made your way to the train station. Standing on that platform under the harsh glare of the glowing sun, you realized two things. Firstly, your train is due to arrive in around 4 minutes and Izuku still hasn't arrived to say goodbye. And B, if in fact he doesn't show up, you will never let him live it down. Well, at least when you return. But then, completely against your will, your mind drifts back to Katsuki. Something that would happen quite regularly. Much to your confusion. You couldn't, no matter how hard you tried, get the look in his eyes out of your head. The look of sadness and betrayal. Why had he looked at you like that? Why had he looked at you like you were the last person on earth he could ever trust and feel affection for? The voice of the intercom disrupts your train of thought with its loud, grating voice. The train heading to XXX Station in the Okinawa Prefecture has now arrived the station. The train will depart at 1300 hours. 2 minutes from now. May all passengers board the train immediately. Upon hearing the intercom, you had finally came to the conclusion that Izuku was in fact not coming. Your parents both gave you a look of pity, which you did not appreciate. You gave them an annoyed look before hugging onto both of them fiercely. Remember, Name, when you arrive at the station, one of the women who work at the academy will take you there. You won't be alone. Behave well, your mother reminded you. You huff in annoyance, I don't even need to go to some dumb academy. I can train my quirk here with Katsuki just fine. Then I can apply to UA without the help of some fancy teachers at the academy, you mumble under your breath. They usher you into the train, with looks of slight sadness in their eyes. Your parents gave you one last nod and then left the station. The intercom sounded once more. The train for XXX station in the Okinawa prefecture will leave in 30 seconds. You silently stare out at the station, cursing Izuku in your head over and over again. Under your breath, you count down the seconds until you depart Mizurufu. Not to return until you were 15 years old. Just as the train door shut and it began slowly moving, two boys your age, one with green hair and the other with blonde hair, ran onto the station, their mothers behind them yelling at them to stop running. Hastily you open up the window in the carriage of the train and peek your head out. Izuku! Katsuki! You call, watching the two boys race across the platform, both as determined as each other to bid the girl goodbye. Katsuki catches up to you first. Using his quirk, he skillfully blasts himself forward, keeping up with the speed of the train, in which was quickly gaining speed. Izuku had rushed up alongside him, running as fast as a 5-year-old possible could. Despite his lack of a quirk, his insistence on seeing you once more is what caused his legs to move so fast. You grin happily, overjoyed by the fact Izuku came. Even more so at the fact Katsuki came too. Despite his seemingly uncaring nature, both of them knew he really did care. But it was only Katsuki who knew that what he felt for Name was more than just that of caring for a friend. Name. Goodbye. I'll watch the moon thinking of you. Izuku yelled out, slowly losing his speed as the train outran him. His panting and lack of breath didn't stop him from trying to get to you. Katsuki's speed was also slowly overpowered by that of the train. But before you could disappear into the tunnel, he managed to yell out, I will wait for you. You stick one of your arms out of the window, attempting to reach out and grab onto one of Katsuki's outstretched hands, adamant to hold him one last time. Realizing you wouldn't be able to reach him, your hand instinctively rips off the necklace from around your neck. You then toss it to Katsuki. But before you could call out to either of the boys, your carriage was swallowed by the darkness of the tunnel, and you were gone. True to your word, you watched the moon every night from the window in your dormitory of the academy. Not once did you doubt that Izuku wasn't watching the same moon at the same time. And not once did you doubt that Katsuki wasn't twirling the necklace in between his fingers thinking of you. But as the years aged, so did you. Slowly the faces and voices of both your childhood friends began to fade from your memory. Not matter how hard you tried to remember. The next decade felt like a century for you. Long years spent at the academy had, in fact, despite your initial concerns, significantly improved your ability to control and harness the power of your quirk. From barely being able to manipulate the size of a branch of a tree, you could now control plants hidden underneath the surface of the ground. Your favorite method of defeating your opponents during your time training in the academy included uplifting the roots of plants from underneath the ground to rise up and wrap around your opponents' bodies, rendering them unable to move. Luckily for you, unlike the training you did with Katsuki as a child, your teachers did not rely on brute force for you to learn and improve. Your return to Mizurufu City was perfectly timed with the UA entrance exam. The very next morning the exam was to be held. You certainly felt prepared for the exam, much less so than how you felt about seeing Katsuki and Izuku after all these years. Do you even have the right to call them by their first names anymore? Maybe they'd feel more comfortable with you calling them Bakugo and Midoriya from now on. I mean, it's been 10 years. Do they even remember you? You scrunch your nose up at these thoughts and forcefully shake your head as if trying to cast them aside. Despite the academy teaching you to rid of all emotions that they deemed useless, affection, you were still unable to forget about the two of them. As if both of them were haunting your narrative from the very day you left Mizurufu until the day you would return. Which is today. The intercom sounded the same grating voice you can still remember from 10 years prior. This train will now arrive at Mizurufu City Station. After waiting 10 years for this moment, you thought you would be slightly more excited. But all you could think about was how you'd initially react when first seeing your friends again. Whether Katsuki was still mad at you or not. whether he still kept the necklace you had given him, whether Izuku had remembered the promise the two of you had made, or had he forgotten. How would you look at either of them? You could hardly breathe. But you had promised yourself you wouldn't go searching for either of them around the neighborhood until after the exam. And, well, if you happen to bump into either of them during the exam, that's just another problem entirely. You doubt you'd barely be able to concentrate. But would Izuku even enter the exam? Last time you saw him all those years ago he was quirkless. The sound of the train doors opening and the happy voice of your parents disrupted your train of thought. Grabbing your suitcase, you leapt out onto the station to greet them, arms wide open. The walk back home from the station reminded you that nothing lasts forever. New buildings were built and others taken down. Old shops were replaced with new ones, and even the neighborhood you had lived in for 5 years when you were a child had changed too. You could scarcely recognize the park in which you Katsuki and Izuku used to play in together. And that frightened you. If all of these things that you had once cherished as a child had changed, then maybe the feelings both Katsuki and Izuku had once held for you had changed too? Upon entering your home again for the first time in 10 years, you spent the next 3 hours catching up with your parents about your time at the academy. About how you have learned to control your quirk better. Whether you had made friends or not. Whether you liked your teachers and found your classes interesting. Whether you had finally gotten a boyfriend, which you had promptly replied with a, hell no, W. What do you mean, EW? Name, when you were much younger before you left for the Okinawa prefecture, both your mother and I were convinced you had something going on with that Bakugo kid. Your father stopped and pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to remember, and that other kid. The green-haired one. He turned to your mother, Inko's kid, remember? Oh yes. Izuku. Yes, I remember. Your mother said gleefully, those 2 boys were smitten with you. Once you were gone they would frequently come over and ask when they could see you. Again. The little angry blonde kid was pretty adamant on making us promise we would never tell you about him coming over though. You didn't even bother replying to such a comment. You simply stuck your tongue out at them, bid them a hasty goodnight and made your way to your room. Smitten? Seriously? Pretty sure you remembered Bakugo hating you. Rather than, never mind. Flopping onto your bed you checked the time, 11 p.m.? You had promised yourself you would go to sleep early in order to be up early for the exam tomorrow. But honestly, even if you did try to sleep now you don't think you could. Your nerves were practically eating you up inside out. You then spent the next half hour trying to delude yourself into believing that you were nervous about the exam and not about potentially running into your ex-childhood friends. This was more nerve-wracking than you initially thought. You wonder if they even felt the same way. Were either of them even thinking of you right now? They knew you were going to be at the examination since you had told them before you left. But did they even care anymore? The morning light seeped into the cracks of your window, painting over your sleeping face as you reluctantly began to stir from your sleep. Sitting up in your bed, you promptly raised your hand and smacked yourself across the face. Harsh. However, it definitely woke you up. After slipping into a pair of joggers and a shirt featuring Pikachu, you decided you were beyond caring about how fashionable you were going to look at the exam. Before briefly yelling out to your parents to wish you good luck, you left the house and made your way to UA, the most prestigious school for soon-to-be heroes in the entirety of Japan. You delayed your journey to UA for as long as you possibly could. You intentionally avoided all main roads and stuck to the alleyways for the entire journey, mainly to reduce any chances of you running into anyone that may know. In particular, the 2 boys you used to be close friends with that may or may not put your heart into overdrive if you saw them right now. As you approached the building, a new wave of nerves washed over you. You began to think that instead of worrying about non-existent friendships you no longer had, you could have been, instead, worrying about the most important exam of your life. Despite feeling confident on the train yesterday, all hopes you had of getting into UA were shattered. Because hundreds or maybe even thousands of other people your age had also entered the auditorium. This school was more competitive than you had originally thought. Fortunately, your assigned seat was at the back of the auditorium, completely out of sight. You already thought it was bad enough that the academy you had attended for a decade prior had an acceptance rate of around 3%. UA's acceptance rate by the looks of it must be below even 1%. whilst waiting for the rest of your competition to file in. The boy that had just sat down beside you with hair spiked up and dyed red, turned to you. "Hey, I'm Eijiro Kirishima," he announced, holding his hand out to you. "I don't know about you, but I'm for sure feeling pretty confident about this exam, huh?" Grateful for the interaction that comfortably filled in the previous awkward silence, you shook his hand and nodded. "I'm Name." "Good on you for feeling confident. Wish I could say the same. I'm just super nervous to finally find out what the exam is actually gonna be." Kirishima gave your hand a comforting squeeze before letting go. "No need to be stressed. I've heard a ton of rumors saying that the exam is gonna be bot-based." Bot-based? You know, like defeating robots for points? I mean, it's just a guess, and honestly it would be super expensive to buy so many robots just for an exam. But I'm pretty sure they can afford to be this reckless, you know," he said, smiling before giving you a comforting pat on the back. "What's your quirk anyway? If you don't mind sharing." "It's pretty basic, to be honest. A massive lie. Just, you know, controlling and manipulating plants," you say, turning away from him, trying not to giggle to yourself. "You call that basic? I'd kill to have a flashy quirk like that," he says, rolling his eyes and huffing in a playful manner. "My quirk is hardening. Basically making my skin as hard as rock, which is pretty useful when it comes to combat." You raise your eyebrows at that. "Hardening? That's impressive." And honestly, knowing that he had a powerful quirk didn't make you feel any better about your chances for getting accepted. Before you could reply, the auditorium's lights faded slightly, and a bright spotlight lit up, casting a blinding light onto the man that stood in the middle of the podium. You sit up straight in your seat as you realize who it is. Present Mike, one of the many heroes other than All Might that you used to obsess over with Izuku. "What's up, UA candidates? Thanks for tuning into your school DJ." His loud voice, coupled with the echoing nature of the auditorium, drowned out any other possible noise. "Come on and let me hear some noise." Total silence. "Tough crowd. Guess I'll just go straight into explaining the exam," he huffed, seemingly defeated. As he begun explaining the premise of the exam, you found out that the rumors were certainly true. The exam was completely reliant on bots and how well you could bring them down. The bot with the highest numerical value was the Venator, as Present Mike called it, worth a total of 3 points. However, it seemed odd to you that the largest bot was worth only 0 midway through your mini existential crisis that was entirely centered on how you were going to avoid the bot worth 0 points. A boy much further down the auditorium had promptly stood up and straightened his blazer, as if he were about to give some sort of niche motivational speech. "I would like to draw attention to the boy sitting in front of me. Perhaps instead of mumbling during this presentation, you'd like to listen in on what the teacher has to say? Furthermore, you are being incredibly distracting towards the other students sitting around you. So, respectively, please keep quiet. If you continue to mumble under your breath like that, then I believe it's only fair that you leave the building," he barked out, before bowing down to present Mike in apology before sitting back down again, nudging his glasses slightly further up his nose. You couldn't help but cringe in embarrassment and pity for the boy he was scolding. Curious to see who Glasses Boy was referring to, you subtly shifted in your seat and peered over the sea of heads that were obstructing your view. But before your wandering eyes would give up and continue to focus on the presentation, you found yourself taking note of a boy sitting a few rows ahead of the glasses guy. A boy with distinct green hair that you could recognize anywhere. Izuku? No way, it couldn't be. He was quirkless, remember? What is he doing here? Is he trying to get himself killed by those bots or something? You quickly pinch your cheek and force your eyes away from him. No way, it's Izuku. It couldn't be. It can't be him. Kirishima, who had seemed to notice your somewhat tense demeanor, had placed a hand over yours before leaning in to whisper in your ear, "Hey Name. You all good? You seem pretty tense." Flinching slightly, you turned to him subtly before whispering, "Just nerves. I'm all right." After Present Mike had finished explaining how the rest of the exam would proceed, you wished Kirishima good luck before heading off to your numbered section in the exam's massive arena. Against your better judgment, you decided to stand at the back of the crowd whilst waiting for the countdown to finish. Still trying to calm your pounding heart down after seeing Izuku. Or maybe just someone who looked like Izuku. Moreover, the mere idea that Katsuki could be in the same section of the exam as you was already stressing you out enough. You groaned slightly before burying your face in your hands. Present Mick's voice boomed throughout the arena once more. 30 seconds till the exams begins. Shaking the idea of both Izuku and Katsuki from your mind, you grit your teeth and steady your breath. To chapter text. At around the 5-minute mark from when the exam started, was when you started to panic. In the span of the last 4 minutes you had only managed to take down at least 3 robots. 2 of them in which were worth 2 marks and the other worth 3. Thus making your overall score at the moment around 7 points. By using the various routes from underneath the surface, you had manipulated them to wrap around each robot before slowly tightening the grip around them before the exterior walls of the robot contracted as all the mass was crushed into the core, effectively destroying each robot in quick succession. Only 5 minutes in, and you could tell that the number of robots left to destroy were rapidly falling. Much to your dismay, it certainly seemed like the other candidates in the examination were also insanely strong. Seemingly the only thing that wasn't working against you was the fact that you hadn't ran into any of the bots worth 0 marks. Seeing those massive things shown to you in the presentation held by Present Mike was enough to make your stomach churn. By influencing the trunks of multiple nearby trees, you had successfully managed to use them as weapons to swiftly defeat a group of bots you had spotted nearby. And after 15 minutes you quickly calculated the total in your head. Your score had now increased to a total of 62 points. Ricocheting yourself off of a vine that you used to propel yourself forward, you maneuvered yourself sharply around a corner, keeping your eyes peeled for any other robots amongst the crowd of competitors. Using a vine you gently climbed your way back down to the ground. After running into a large open space, you couldn't help but furrow your brows at the fact that no other candidates seemed to be in the vicinity. A big open space with no sign of anyone else. Where had they all run off to? Did they know something you didn't? Sighing slightly to yourself, you began to realize that you should start formulating some sort of plan on how to accumulate more points before the exam finished. You failed to realize that the reason everyone else had fled the area was stood right behind you as you were looking down at the ground, completely oblivious, pinching the bridge of your nose as you racked your brain for a plan. But soon, the reason that the area was so deserted soon came into fruition. The sound of the stirring of mechanics snapped you out of your daze. And there it stood, at least 100 meters tall and 40 meters wide. The Zero Robot. And no way in hell were you even gonna try defeating that monstrosity. Before its metal fist could flatten you down onto the ground, you dove out of the way and made a run for it. Well, naturally, it followed you. At least 20 dirty looks were flashed your way when you unintentionally led the massive robot into an area filled with the other candidates and various other robots. Huffing slightly in annoyance, you stopped running and decided to face the inevitable. You'd have to destroy it. Fuckus Bot wouldn't stop following you around. Grabbing onto a vine, you swung yourself high above the robot. Then, using the walls of the structures surrounding you, you ricocheted off of them to alternate your direction, trying to circle around the robot to wrap the vine around it. This bot being much bigger than the previous ones, making it harder for you to manipulate the vine telepathically. So you opted for doing it manually. The plan of wrapping the vine around the robot did in fact not work out. Its mechanism was clearly too advanced, and it easily ripped through the vines you had attempted to trap it with. Plummeting to the ground, you had landed flat on your back, completely knocking the air out of your lungs. Unable to move, you fearfully looked back up at the robot towering above you. After hearing a deafening scraping sound coming from the opposing side of the robot, you realized it must have come from another candidate who had successfully deactivated the robot. And the only reason you realized this was because the robot in question was now also plummeting to the ground, headed to land right on top of you. Your lungs that were still completely void of air prevented you from being able to get up. Less so like a human being and more so like a fish you tried to scramble away. This, however, was a complete fail. At the last second you had quickly managed to create a makeshift shield in front of you, using the roots from under the ground to form a barrier in front of you. However, you knew this was futile. The immense pressure the robot would enforce on your shield was sure to break it immediately. Clenching your fists tightly and shutting your eyes, You accepted the unavoidable. Your depressing state of mind was soon disrupted by a somewhat familiar sound of a series of aggressive explosions that were rapidly coming your way. Despite your vision that remained blurry due to the injuries you sustained by your fall, you could somewhat make out the image of another candidate quickly making their way over to you. With a cloud of fire and smoke following behind him, the stranger wrapped his left arm around your waist. And with using his right arm, he swiftly turned his palm towards the falling robot, and by activating his quirk, the robot was blasted off into the distance, left to collapse against a nearby building. After finally regaining the air you so desperately needed back into your lungs, your vision also became slightly clearer. So you took this moment as an opportunity to take a better look at the guy who had just saved you from death. There was no doubt about it. The same blonde spiky hair. The same red eyes that constantly looked like they were about to kill someone. The same insane competitive drive that provoked him to willingly destroy the most powerful robot in the arena. In order to save you. Katsuki. You must have pictured your reunion with Katsuki at least 1,000 times. You imagined what he would say to you after not seeing you for so long. You imagined the expression he would wear on his face as he finally saw you again. And sometimes you imagined the way he would have hugged you tightly after he had dropped his cold exterior. In all of the thousands of ways you had imagined this interaction to play out, not once did you picture for Katsuki to look at you with an expression of hostility. His eyes lingered on you for a moment too long, searching your eyes, then your lips and nose and the rest of your body. You had half expected his gaze to soften, allowing himself to become vulnerable like he had done so many times when you were kids. Times when you could rely on each other, times when not even Izuku could comfort you. Only him. But instead, his eyes hardened, and his eyebrows furrowed, emphasizing his feelings of unexplained animosity towards you. Katsuki dash. It's been so long, you say, your voice hoarse? You never expected to be so shy around him. Around someone you used to know so well. You swallowed, trying to soothe your dry throat. Your heart pumped in your chest, unable to take your eyes off of his. Why did he have to grow up to be so handsome? I barely recognize you, you comment lightheartedly. Trying to fill in the silence, anything to bring things back to the way they used to be. A futile attempt to lighten up his evidently sour mood. He let out a short breath of air from his nose. A short, bitter sort of laugh that you never wished to hear from him. You never visited. You never even called. He paused slightly, his eyes flickering down to the ground. You never even said goodbye. Turning his head away from you, he removed his arm from around your waist. It's your fault you don't recognize me. And it's your fault that you won't get to recognize me again. The light in your eyes fade as you look at him with a confused expression. Dropping the shy smile you had held on to, you asked, "What do you mean?" Your breath had hitched in your throat, making it harder to breathe with each word he said. No matter how many times you pictured this moment, it had never gone this badly. And you had no idea how to fix it. What I mean is that we've lost anything that we had between us before. And there's no way I'm letting you in again. His eyes flickered towards you again, filled with contempt and disappointment. No matter how hard he had tried to hide it, it seemed pretty obvious that you were a subject that he had heavily been thinking about throughout the past 10 years. You hated yourself for the fact that his words had such a big effect on you. Moreover, you hated the fact that he was right there to witness the impact he still had on you, even after all these years. Tears welled up in your eyes, trembling at the edge before spilling down your cheeks. Your lips quivered, struggling to form words that wouldn't come. But I tried to say goodbye, seriously I did. Flushing slightly, you went on, "I care about you. Katsuki I dash. You have no right to call me that anymore," he snapped, seething at you through gritted teeth. Forcing himself to not give in to your tears, no matter how much it hurt him to do so. "In fact, you have no right to call me ever again." He took a step away from you, his back turned to you, signifying the wall he had put up between the two of you. "Don't get in my way again, name," he mutters quietly. Almost as if he was speaking those words to himself, convincing himself that it was a good idea to distance himself from you, to prevent himself from getting hurt again. He didn't give you a chance to speak up again. He had already reactivated his quirk and blasted himself off into the distance, out of your line of sight. And for the second time in 10 years you had parted from each other once more without a goodbye. Your shoulders shook with each ragged breath, as if the weight of regret pressed down on your chest. Your feelings were so immense and deep that it had almost had a physical effect on you. Trying to get away from the shame you felt for the pain you had caused him, you turned away from where you and Katsuki had previously stood. After you had realized that several people had watched the little scene you and Katsuki had put on, you quickly covered your face with your sleeves and walked off, scrubbing at your eyes to try and dry the tears. The rest of the exam felt like a sickening daze to you. Like a joke. The intensity of your feelings didn't even feel human. It never does. The voice of present Mike eventually impeded the loneliness you had felt in that moment. And that's it, folks. The UA physical exam has officially ended. If you have sustained any injuries, our resident recovery girl will gladly patch you up. If not, make your way to one of the exits. Blending yourself in with the crowd, you gratefully left the arena. Eager to leave behind the negative memories you had somehow managed to obtain in the span of the 3 minutes you had spent with your newly formed enemy. A dull ache started to pulse in your head. Great. Another thing on top of your unsolicited interaction with Katsuki. Upon returning home, after your mind had been solely isolated on Katsuki, or rather Bakugo as you should call him now, your mind drifted to Izuku. What if he also felt the same way Bakugo did? What if he felt the same hostility and disappointment in you after your whole disappearing act? What if he was resentful of the fact that you didn't visit? Not even once. You had imagined your return home from the exam to feel like a success. But all you could manage to focus on was the fact that you had lost one of the most important people in the world to you. Katsuki Bakugo. The rest of the day passed by in a hazy blur of flashing colors and aggravated whines. Instead of spending the hours after your exam celebrating with your parents, you instead decided to bedrot. Listening to depressing music by Radiohead and the Smiths, then you went to the mirror to watch yourself cry to make yourself cry even harder. At this point you're just being stupid instead of dramatic. But at this moment in time you definitely thought that this was the perfect time for dramatics. Not only did you think you 100% flopped that exam, you also lost all hope of ever being someone important to Bakugo ever again. Now you suppose you're just an inconvenient memory to him. A passing thought that he tries so hard to get rid of but never can. And now here you are, lying down on the floor of your bedroom listening to some melancholy song that successfully further worsens your mood. Once the song ends, the next one that comes up on your playlist is Gangnam Style, PSY, which completely ruins the whole vibe you were trying to go for at the time. The light knock on your bedroom door is what snaps you out of your trance. Your mother enters the room with a very unimpressed look on her face as she notices you splayed out across the floor. Ahem. Name, she says tiredly, clearly already used to the odd behavior you had displayed since the moment you came home from the exam. You don't reply, you simply turn your head towards her from the floor. There's a boy at the door, she states, giggling to herself slightly. Quite the popular one, aren't you? He says he's looking for you. Sighing to herself, she walks over to you and hauls you up by the arm. Boy? Boy. Bakugo. You frantically mumble, unable to comprehend the fact that Bakugo may have already forgiven you by now and has showed up at your door begging for mercy. Bakugo? The blonde kid? No. The other boy. What's his name? Is Zook, I think, she ponders, pinching the bridge of her nose. Green hair. Freckles? Yeah, it's definitely Izuku. Your heart starts pounding again, just like it had when Bakugo had held you during the exam. Sheet. Language. You disregard her comment and brush past her, heading towards the front door, mentally preparing yourself for whatever he had to say. What if he came to say something similar to what Bakugo had said? What if he came over to say he never wanted anything to do with you ever again? Heart practically beating out of your chest, you clutch the door knob and turn it, gently cracking the door open. Your breath hitched when you saw him. He was much taller now, obviously, and surprisingly muscular. But it was obvious it was him. The same green hair and the same number of freckles on either side of his face. The freckles you used to count when you two used to huddle up together in the night, gently touching each one as you counted, never failing to make him blush in embarrassment. He looked just as surprised to see you after all. It had been 10 years. A long time for two friends to go without speaking to each other. His eyes searched yours, and then the rest of your face just like Bakugo had done. But instead, Izuku's eyes weren't filled with malice and anger, they were filled with longing. Name. He spoke gently, voice wavering, trying not to break. He blushed slightly, before hesitantly taking an unsure step towards you. Do you remember me? He said, clearly insecure of whether you had or had not remembered him. He couldn't meet your eyes as he said those words. He looked away. His eyes had become glossy with unshed tears. A crybaby as always, but nonetheless, a crybaby you were fond of. You laughed gently at his question. You think I wouldn't have remembered you? You've been plaguing my mind since the day I left. You bite your lip hard, as if trying to muster up the courage to run over to him and hug him as tightly as you could. The next few words couldn't escape your mouth without a few tears threatening to roll down your cheeks. Ilish, as your voice broke, he ran towards you and held you tightly. His arms wrapped securely around your waist as he buried his face into your hair. Don't cry. Please name, you know how much it hurts me to see you sad, he mumbles into your hair, trying not to cry himself. You manage to force out a little laugh. Sad? How can I be sad when I'm with you? He blushes intensely. You, of course, are oblivious to this as his head is still completely covered by your hair. You shouldn't say things like that. You can't help but let out a real laugh this time. You never change, do you? You gently bring your hand up to his head, pulling him in closer. When we were kids you were barely able to touch the top of my head. And now look at you. He laughs between small sniffles, muffled by your hair. The both of you stay silent for a while, simply enjoying each other's embrace. The silence was not an absence, you were finally at peace. And for you, Izuku was your peace, and you were his. Eventually your mother came out to usher the both of you inside to prevent the both of you from freezing in the cold of the night. The next few hours felt like bliss to you. Catching up with Izuku about what had happened throughout the last 10 years of your lives felt like the bond between the two of you was reforming. After a while of silence, with the two of you just lying together in your bed, watching the poorly placed glow-in-the-dark stars on your ceiling, you finally brought up the subject that you were clearly quite nervous to ask about. Nervously, you patted his hand, and by instinct his face turned to yours, your faces centimeters apart. Izuku, before I left, I remember you not getting along very well with Bakugo. I was just wondering how things are with him now. Izuku laughed gently at that, placing his hands over his face. Kaken hasn't changed one bit at all. He said gently, shifting himself so that he was lying on his side, fully turned to you. I've tried. You know? I really have. I want to be friends with him. The way we used to be when we were younger. Before you left. Before his quirk manifested. He paused momentarily, looking away from you. He used to bring you up sometimes whenever he spoke to me. Most of the time, actually. Your eyes widened at that. He mentioned. The way he looked at you during the exam made you believe he was prepared to kill you. No way you would have thought he would have had been thinking about you at all during the time you were gone. What do you mean he mentioned me? You asked curiously, keeping your voice soft and quiet, gently placing your hand onto his arm. He stiffened slightly at the contact and blushed but didn't move away. He used to bring you up when he got mad at me. He usually just said something about you being stupid to pick someone like me over him. Even years and years after you left, he still brought you up. Now it's your turn to blush. You huffed softly and shoved your face into a pillow. I'm sorry you had to put up with his bullshit, you say, voice muffled by the pillow. You turn your head back at him, cupping his face with your hands, causing his eyes to widen and pupils to dilate. I'll make up for the lost years. I promise. Izuku? Can I ask you something? If it's you that's asking me name, you can ask me anything you want, whenever you want, he spoke sincerely. In a comforting tone that Bakugo could never replicate. Did it hurt? When I left? You asked, somewhat reluctantly, voice hoarse. You feared his reply. It did hurt. But I'll welcome that pain over and over again if it means that I'd get to hold you again, he said. Paused for a moment and then clamped his hands over his mouth upon seeing your flustered expression. You burst into laughter a moment later. Geez, you always know what to say, huh? You smile at him, a warm, sincere smile. A smile you wished you could have also given to Bakugo, instead of looking at him with that pitiful look on your face as he turned his back from you. The night was then spent in silence, as you both slept peacefully beside each other, oblivious for what is in store for the both of them. The next morning your mind was completely void of all worries. You had woken up and the first thing you saw was Izuku's peaceful face, eyes closed as his chest rose and then fell in gentle waves. You didn't dare to wake him up, not when he looked more at peace than you had ever seen him. In the blue light he had never looked more beautiful. Not like you could ever admit that aloud. You cursed internally as the rays of morning sun flooded into your bedroom, causing him to stir from his sleep. He murmured slightly before fully awakening, his eyes still only half open, "Name?" "I'm here, Izuku," you respond, your voice quiet, gently brushing a few locks of his hair away from his face. He lets out a small sigh of relief. "I thought for a moment that the entirety of yesterday evening was just a dream," he smiles shyly. "I'm happy to know that this time being with you wasn't just a dream, but a reality." He blushes at his words and looks away as he sees your smug grin. "You flatter me as..." You tease him jokingly, pushing him lightly, in a playful manner. "Come on, let's get breakfast. My parents are probably already at work, so we can pretty much just eat the entire fridge if we want." He grinned and nodded. "You never change, do you?" he spoke, watching you with a fond look. "Did you expect me to?" you ask, already halfway out the door, waiting for him to follow your lead. "Maybe, but I'm just glad you didn't." "I'm glad you're still you," he said quietly in his usual meek tone. "I would think about it a lot whilst you were gone. Whether you were going to change or not." He paused slightly before continuing to speak. "I would think about you a lot. You were like the moon. Something I could never get away from." You cut him off in excitement. "The moon? Do you mean that little promise we made before I left where we'd both watch the moon at the same time? You remember that?" "Hard to forget, especially if it's you." "Name," he says, seemingly oblivious to what he had just implied. "I'm glad I made an impression then." You grinned at him, grabbing onto his wrist and dragging him into the kitchen. The rest of the morning was spent with the two of you preparing some sort of half-buttered buffet which was primarily made up of the random ingredients the two of you had found in your fridge. However, upon finishing breakfast, when the two of you sat down, you suddenly remembered what you had been curious of since before the exam. "Izuku," you began, sitting down beside him at the table. "Were you at the UA exam yesterday? I think I saw you, but I wasn't too sure." He smiled and nodded, before quickly swallowing his food in order to answer you. "Yeah, I don't think I did too well though," he sighed, putting his fork down in defeat. "I don't think I got many points at all." You frown, furrowing your brows. "But I don't get it, weren't you quirkless? I mean, at least you were quirkless before I left for the academy." He suddenly blushes, sitting up in his chair and looking away from you, avoiding your eyes, as if he had something to hide. "Oh. I guess I'm just a really late bloomer." He spoke rapidly, clearly eager to end the topic of conversation as quickly as possible. You narrow your eyes slightly in suspicion, however you don't press the matter. You don't want to interrogate the poor guy after you had only just reunited after 10 years. "Well, Diamond, good for you, Izuku. I know how much you want to be a hero, and also that's awesome. What is your quirk anyway?" He flinches slightly at the question, giving you a crooked little smile. "Just, super strength? And I can jump really high too," he said quietly, taking a sip of water. "Kinda like All Might then." "Cool." He spurted out the water from his mouth as you said that. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "Oh, huh. I never really thought about it like that. We aren't similar at really dash." You eyed him up and down for a prolonged amount of time. He was hiding something. You were sure of it. But honestly, you were just happy at the fact that he was with you again, so you gave him the benefit of the doubt and dropped the subject. Rather hesitantly, you had changed the subject to what your mind has been grilling you over since the exam. "Izuku. About Bakugo." After he had frantically finished wiping the table from the water he had accidentally spat out, he turned his head to you. "Kakin? What about him? Yesterday you mentioned that he sometimes brought me up when he used to harass you. But does he ever say hateful things about me? Like if he's mad that I left?" You asked curiously but hesitantly, as if even uttering his name was some sort of taboo. Because that's how much his opinion meant to you. How much he meant to you. Kaken would never hate you name. You know that. I don't think he's capable of hating you. He says, sighing slightly. He might not have ever said it aloud, but I could tell that he missed you. Izuku continued, placing a hand on your arm, in an attempt to comfort you. You breathe out gently, your eyes threatening to spill tears again. I bumped into him during the exam. And he made it pretty clear that he wanted nothing to do with me. You say, your voice wobbling slightly. Izuku's face broke into a look of concern and worry for you upon seeing your glossy eyes. Whatever he said to you, he said it in the heat of the moment. I know Kaken. And I also know that he doesn't hate you. Not one bit. The only thing he hates is the fact that he can't hate you, no matter how hard he tries. He smiles at you gently, squeezing your arm. He denies it every time I mention it, but he still wears the necklace you gave him the day you left. You blush as your pupils dilate. He does. Pretty much every day without fail. He fiddles with it during class. He usually doesn't let his guard down, but his eyes are always dim when he plays with the necklace. It's weird to see him so vulnerable. Sometimes I wonder if he's thinking of you when he holds it, he says, smiling at your flustered expression. But he would never hate you. Not ever. You nod, grateful for his kindness and his affection. That means a lot to me. Thank you, Izuku. But you can't help but wonder what caused him to act so coldly during the exam. If he had missed you, then why did he treat you so cruelly? As if you were just another piece of dirt under his shoe that he had to get rid of. The remainder of breakfast is spent talking about much lighter subjects. The majority of your conversation revolved around you and Izuku gossiping out over various heroes the two of you admired. Your conscience had finally settled. As if Izuku brought you peace of mind whenever he was around. He always had that effect on you. Ever since you were kids. That's why you're determined from now on to keep him close to you. So before Izuku left to go back home, you had exchanged numbers, because no way in hell were you going to let him get away again. Not like last time. The days spent leading up to the day of the results washed away in a blitz. The majority of your time was spent with Izuku, typically spending it in the comfort of your own home or away from the neighborhood. Far enough so that you were sure that you wouldn't bump into a certain someone. It was almost as if nothing had ever changed. Although being with Izuku was better than you had ever imagined it, you couldn't help but miss Bakugo, despite his cruel words. The day before the results of who got into UA or not was a particularly warm day. So much so that you had successfully convinced your parents to let you go out on a walk late in the evening. So naturally you had kidnapped Izuku from his house and dragged him along with you. As the both of you walked down the bridge over the river, neither of you spoke. The silence wasn't something that either of you had felt the need to break. It was a comforting peace that the both of you reveled in. Gradually you had slowed down your walking speed, gently wrapping your hand around his to get him to slow down too. You took a deep breath and turned to look out at the river as it reflected the silvery light casted upon it by the moon. Gently you leaned forward and rested your arms against the rails before Izuku had done the same, leaning in closer to you in a way he had never really done before. Don't you think it's daunting that the entirety of our futures relies on the outcome of tomorrow? He murmured quietly, resting his chin in the palm of his hand, looking out at the view. You've been thinking about the results again, Izuku? You ask, your eyes flickering with concern for him. Whatever will be will be. There's no use stressing about something that is already set in stone. You say, trying to comfort him, stealing his hand away from where he was resting his head in and clasping it in yours. Let's just live one day at a time. You smile at him, catching his gaze. Your eyes widen in surprise as he pulls his hand away from yours. Not once had he ever refused your affection before. His eyes close tightly and he turns his head away from you. It's just if I don't get into UA then I lose everything. Well, Dean, that was pretty cynical coming from a boy who was usually cheery most of the time. Izuku, that's not true at all. You can still train to be a hero whether you get into UA or not. There are plenty of other good schools around our area, you know? And besides, I'm sure you got in. In fact, I'm positive that you did. And there's no chance that someone as ambitious as you will just give up. He blushes faintly and shakes his head at your words. I don't mean that. I know there are other schools out there, it's just dash. He pauses before looking at you once more and taking your hand in his again. I don't want us to be separated again. If you're going to go to UA, then I want to go with you too. I want to be with you every step of the way, name, right by your side. He states, a look of pure determination in his eyes, his words tainted with certainty and sincerity. You stifle a giggle and clamp your palm over your mouth as his face turns a fierce shade of red. I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry. He stammers, groaning slightly into his hand out of embarrassment. You simply shake your head and brush his bangs away from his face, tilting your head to the side slightly to get a better look at him. Don't apologize. I thought it was cute. His breath hitched as you said that, but he seemed almost composed this time. As if he suddenly knew what it was that he had to do, that this was the right time to finally say the words that he had been hoping to say for so long. He took another deep breath before he turned to you, his gaze suddenly serious. Name, there's something I think I should tell you. You raise an eyebrow, silently encouraging him to continue. Something to tell you? Phew. You've always loved gossip. Maybe it's something to do with his quirk and the fact that it linked so closely to All Might. Despite the fact we were separated for 10 years, I've always, admired you. Especially when we were kids, I thought you were the coolest person ever. The way you stood up to Kaken when we were younger proved to me just how good of a person you truly are. Despite the fact that you can be pretty assertive sometimes and brutally honest. I've always viewed those character traits of yours as things that continue to make you the amazing person that you are and not as flaws or faults as other people call them. Flaws and imperfections are what make people unique after all. And people that are unique are the most beautiful of them all. He let out a weak laugh, looking back out at the horizon. And for me, name, you were always the most beautiful. Even in a field full of the most beautiful flowers, I wouldn't be able to take my eyes away from you. And that has never changed. Even after you left. But since you've returned, I think that my feelings for you might have changed. He says, looking at you briefly, trying to get a read of your reaction before quickly shutting up after realizing the implications of what he had just said. Definitely not All Might related then. This was unexpected. Kudos to him for the insanely undeserved compliments though. You pause, not in surprise but in confusion. Changed? Changed how? You looked directly at him, noting the way his hand trembled slightly as it gripped the railing, the way he couldn't look you in the eyes. The way it seemed like his entire being centered around you. Like you were the sun and he was just another mere planet that revolved around you. Like you were the warmth that had kept him going for all these years. After Izuku had given himself a few silent words of encouragement, he quickly turned to you and started up again. All my life I've been looking for something to make me feel as if I was worthy enough. Everything that I've ever achieved to make me feel like I belong in this world has felt minuscule in comparison to the way that you make me feel, name. This might sound insane, but I think I low dash. Before he could finish his rather long-winded statement, an irritated, rather obnoxious voice had come up behind the both of you and had completely disrupted the quiet, peaceful world that you and Izuku had shared only moments before. For sakes, what the hell did I do to deserve to run into you idiots again? The voice sneered, clearly full of malice and contempt for the both of you. You didn't even need to turn around to know who was speaking. And just like that, all of your futile attempts of trying to avoid him had completely crumbled. It was time to bite the bullet. You silently glance at Izuku, who was also looking at you in hesitation and unease. With a quiet sigh, you reluctantly turn around to face him. Ugh, you say, your voice faint and hushed. The silence between the two of you held 1,000 unspoken words. Words of forgiveness and quiet longing. You face the boy glaring straight back at you, wearing the same look of fury that you had met during the exam. You steal another awkward glance at Izuku, who also seemed as awkward and tense as you are. Hey, Kaken. We didn't really expect to see you here. Izuku starts, keeping his tone polite and formal. You flash him a thankful smile, grateful for his attempt to lighten the situation. Bakugo rolls his eyes at him, switching his gaze over to Izuku, his fist clenching around the grocery bag he was gripping in his right hand. You little fuckers. You're seriously disgusting. Cozying up to each other like that? Get a room, goddammit, he snarled, mainly directed at you rather than Izuku. You never know when to back off, do you, Deku? Before Izuku could even retaliate, you stepped forward, giving Izuku's hand a gentle squeeze before blocking him from Bakugo's view. Leave Izuku out of this, you snap, glaring at him. Listen, I know you're mad at me, but there's no need to take it out at him. He let out a bitter laugh. For F's sake's name. It's always him, isn't it? And it always has been. Deku this, Deku that. Even when we were kids you always chose him. He was practically yelling at this point, his free hand tensed, with mini explosions being emitted from his palm due to his fury. You let out a sigh of helplessness, swaying slightly on your feet. What are you even talking about? There wasn't even a choice to be made. Why do you always have to make everything a competition between you guys? You tried to move closer to him to try and reason with him, to make him understand that he wasn't second choice to Izuku. That he wasn't just a passing thought, that he has been on your mind ever since you had left him. Then why are you always by his side? You always took his side. Even now. He curses under his breath before taking a few steps towards you. For a few fleeting seconds you truly thought that this was it, that he was going to finally give in and allow himself to act upon his true feelings, the ones that he kept hidden beneath his wrathful facade. Izuku's grip on your hand tightens as he sees Bakugo closing in on you, but you were hopeful instead of fearful. You realize that you couldn't care less about what Bakugo had to say anymore, you just wanted your friend back. You wanted him back. But he brushed past you, as if disregarding your entire existence, refusing to spare you a glance, and instead, he headed straight for Izuku before grabbing him by the collar of his shirt and shoving him against the railings, causing the upper half of his body to hang dangerously over the river. You little piece of shit. You probably think you're so much better than me, huh? Because she decided to go for you instead of me? Izuku's eyes widen in horror before he grabs onto Bakugo's arm, gritting his teeth before yelling back, causing Bakugo to narrow his eyes. I'm not the same kid I was back then, Kakin. And I'm not going to let you treat me like this anymore. Especially in front of Name. Despite flushing faintly at his comment, you immediately try to back Izuku up. Hurriedly you try to latch onto his free arm to pull him away from Izuku. Bakugo, I'm serious, quit it. You'll hurt him. Please just stop being like this. Come back to me already, let's go back to how we used to be. He pauses momentarily, his red eyes piercing yours. Come back to you? Name, you already left me, you left me for him. You have no effing right to be surprised that I'm leaving you in return, he snaps, letting go of Izuku before shoving him back into the railings. You let out a small huff of defiance and irritation. It's true. I did leave. But I would never leave you intentionally. If it was up to me I would have stayed. I would have. You know how much you mean to me. But he had already began walking off, running his free hand through his hair. Forget it, Name, you blew your last chance. You quickly ran up behind him and hugged him tightly from behind, wrapping your arms tightly around his waist, causing him to let out a disgruntled, huh, sound. I'm not going to give up on you. I'm not going to give up on us and what we could have had. He doesn't turn around, refusing to give you the satisfaction of seeing the faint blush on his cheeks. He simply stiffens slightly at your touch, not reciprocating but not moving away either. So you count that as a win. You let go and back up. I will find a way back to you. One way or another. He subtly turns his head towards you and snaps at you, just leave me alone. Then he leaves, briskly walking away from the two of you. With Izuku still clutching onto the railings, eyebrows still raised in shock from how you had managed to handle Bakugo. You smile to yourself, sure maybe him telling you to leave him alone wasn't that great of an outcome, but behind his glare, you could see genuine emotions being formed. Emotions that illustrated to you the fact that he wasn't ready to give up on you either. And no way in hell were you going to give up on him now. Walking back to Izuku, your expression turns back into a worried one. However, you couldn't help but smile to yourself at the fact that you might be able to reform the bond between yourself and Bakugo. The one that you had thought that could never be repaired again. He shoved you pretty hard, huh? You say softly, taking him away from the railing. You okay? He takes a small gulp before smiling slightly. Well, are you okay? You nod, your smile growing slightly. You were right about what you said on the day we reunited. I have faith again. I have faith that I can become his friend again. A barely noticeable glimmer of sadness flickers across his features as you mention your desire to become close with Bakugo again. Well, as long as you're okay. I suppose I am too. You sigh in relief, in gratitude of knowing that Izuku remained unharmed, and because the hope that you thought had died out had finally become relit again. Then suddenly you felt as if a large spear had pierced through your mind as a memory had suddenly jolted alive within you. Izuku, I completely forgot. What were you saying earlier? Before Bakugo came? He kinda interrupted your last sentence and I didn't really hear you say, smiling at him apologetically. Bakugo certainly had a way of being able to take your mind off of things. The sadness that you had noticed in his expression before became more obvious as he shook his head at you. It's nothing, it's stupid anyway. Is it okay if I tell you another time? He spoke, voice gentle, wavering slightly. Damn it, now you were going to have to live with the curiosity. Yikes, this was gonna eat you alive. But you give him a half-hearted smile and you teasingly roll your eyes. Yeah, whatever. I'll let you off the hook this time. But don't think I'm gonna forget about this. He smiles at you in gratitude, biting the inside of his cheek in nervousness. I promise. One day I'll tell you. The journey back home after you had dropped Izuku back at his house was filled entirely with thoughts of Bakugo. Because no way are you going to let this chance to become his friend again get away. Despite your insistence on waking up at the earliest possible time to wait around for your letter, you had, in fact, slept through all 9 alarms you had set yourself the previous evening. It was your mother who had to barge in your room and quite literally scream into your ear in order for you to wake up. Grabbing onto your shoulders tightly and yanking your half-conscious self into a sitting position, she excitedly began hurling a flurry of words right into your ear. Name. For God's sakes, girl, wake up dash. You cut her off with an irritated glare. You just woke me up from a dream. I was in a harem with Hawks and Mount Lady and you freaking interrupted it. Slowly blinking at you, she gave you a mildly disturbed look. Next time keep your dreams to yourself. You paused. Yeah, fair enough. Why did you wake me up anyway? This better be worth it. Rolling her eyes, her expression quickly shifted to a more enthusiastic one. Your letter arrived. The one from you. That definitely woke you up, and you quickly snapped out of your half-conscious stupor. You're serious? Oh God. She hurriedly shoved the letter into your hands. I haven't read it yet. Listen, I think you should open it alone first, okay? So to give you space in case it's a bad outcome, she says, giving you a comforting pat on the arm. You think I failed, don't you? Yeah, she says, giving you a semi-supportive grin. Half hopeful, half concerned. Well, so much for motherly kindness. You can go now, you say, ushering her away until she's out of the room before closing the door. You look down at the letter into your hands, back slumping against the wall as you dramatically sink to the floor. Before opening the letter, you quickly grab your phone first, eager to get an update on whether Izuku had also received his letter yet. Izuku. I just got my letter. I haven't opened it yet. Letter.autocorrect is so sheet. I wanted to wait to text you first before opening it. Have you gotten yours yet? Hey name. Yeah. I just got mine. I haven't opened it either. I'm really nervous. I've kinda just been looking at it sitting on my desk in silence. There's no need to be scared, Izuku. We can't change what is already fated, YK. I'm going to go open mine now. Text me when you have opened yours. Thank you, name. I think I'd be lost without you. I'm glad I have you with me again, smiley face. Good luck. Good luck, Izuku. You threw your phone to the side before burying your face in your hands, giving yourself a few silent words of encouragement before you grasped onto the letter again. Come on, man, you can do this. You mumble to yourself under your breath, hyping yourself up. Hey. No big deal. Just the moment that you've been waiting for 10 years. No pressure. Shaking the negative thoughts from your head with trembling hands, you gently rip the envelope open and fish the letter from inside. You take a deep breath before you start reading the contents of the letter. Dear first name, last name, we are pleased to inform you that we are now in a position to offer you a place at UA. In both your written and physical exam, you have managed to accumulate enough points to successfully make it into the hero course. With an excellent score of 62 points, we are honored to tell you that you have made it into Class 1A. You didn't even feel the need to read the rest of the letter. Because that last sentence was all the information you cared about knowing. You got in Class 1A? The freaking hero course? Before doing a rather pathetic little victory dance, which mainly involved you rolling around on the floor, you quickly grabbed onto your phone to message Izuku. Izuku, I just finished reading my letter. Have you? You began biting the inside of your cheek in nervousness whilst waiting for him to reply. What if he didn't get in? You don't think you could face going to a whole new school without him? It'll be like the academy all over again. I mean, you don't doubt Bakugo also got into the hero course, but at this moment in time you don't think Bakugo would particularly tolerate having you hover around him 24 upon hearing your phone buzz. You immediately picked up your phone again. I got into Class 1A. Good job, Izuku. Love, so did I. Now you're definitely never gonna get rid of me now, huh? Never gonna get rid of you? Gladly. I don't think I would want to imagine a world where I wasn't with you, huh? You blush faintly before giggling at his text. You can't expect to text me something that cute and not expect me to come over. I'll be there in 5. I'll be counting down the seconds. You popped your phone into your pocket and got ready to head over to Izuku's. Normally you would immediately rush out of the door heading straight to his place. Without a care in the world for whether you looked like a hobo or not. But for no reason at all you suddenly found yourself conscious of your appearance. Inexplicably you found yourself curious of what Izuku truly thought about you. Not just for your personality, but for your appearance. Howard, you don't think you've ever really felt this way before. Quickly you rushed to the bathroom to look into the mirror. Gently combing your hair, pondering on whether you should wear something cuter than what you already had on. Maybe you should put some makeup on while you're at it. Some mascara won't hurt. Wait, what? Why were you even worried about how you looked? This was Izuku, for crying out loud. Your best friend. The one person in the world you truly knew you. Apart from Bakugo. Why did you suddenly care about how you looked around him? And inexplicably a faint blush rose onto your cheeks as you thought about it. Probably just a fever, dismissing the entire ordeal, brushing it off as something insignificant. You couldn't allow these weird feelings get in the way of your friendship. Not after you had managed to finally make your way back to him. Hurrying out the door, you quickly shoved the acceptance letter into your mother's hand. Guess your daughter isn't a failure after all, you say, wearing a smug grin on your face. I never doubted you. Good job. She says, clasping her hands together and smiling at you. You literally said you thought I would FAI, you know what? I'm in too good of a mood. See ya. And with that you rush out of the door and make your way over to the Midoriya household. On the way you couldn't help but take a small detour, taking the once familiar route you so often took as a child. As much as you tried convincing yourself that you didn't care about Bakugo's opinion of you anymore, and as much as you would have liked to make your day completely about getting into UA with Izuku, you couldn't help but think about him instead. The way he had spoken to you the day before. When you had seen him on that bridge. More so the way he looked at you that night, the way he wouldn't ever look that way at anyone else. But you stopped and glanced up at Bakugo's home. A place once full of fond memories. Memories you still weren't willing to let go of yet. You smiled to yourself faintly, your heart rate quickening at the thought of Bakugo finally giving up his cold demeanor and letting you back into his arms. But you knew you had to work for his trust. So with a slight huff you give the house one last glance, before setting off on your journey again. Standing in front of the door of Izuku's home, you found yourself unable to ring the doorbell. You must have done this 1,000 times before. Without hesitation you would click onto the bell, excited at the prospect of seeing your friend again. But tonight you found yourself nervous to be around him. Why was that? Admiration? Affection? The weird fluttering feeling you had felt in your stomach before you left? Or maybe guilt? Because you knew no matter how hard you tried, each time you would think about Izuku his face would warp in your mind, it would melt away to resemble a different face. The face of someone you knew had been harassing Izuku for years. How could you tell him that you were desperately trying to make amends with his lifelong bully? How could you tell him that every time you thought of him your mind couldn't help but wander back to Bakugo? But for now, you push away these feelings of guilt and fondness. And you finally ring the doorbell. Chapter text. After you had finally finished skulking around the entrance to his home, You finally managed to dismiss the unfamiliar feelings from your mind and pressed the doorbell. Slowly rocking back and forth on your feet, you anxiously bit on your nails, waiting for Izuku to appear. But once he had opened the door, your previous nervousness instantly melted away once you locked eyes with him. Name. You really weren't kidding around when you said you'd be 5 minutes. He says, smiling at you fondly, his eyes locked into yours for a moment longer. And you weren't kidding when you said you'd be counting down the seconds. The distance between us isn't that far anymore, you know. I live like 2 minutes away, you state, rolling your eyes teasingly at his bashful demeanor as you allow yourself into his house, making a beeline for his bedroom. He seemed shy to continue making conversation with you, which, in your opinion, was unlike him. Since the night at the bridge where the two of you had encountered Bakugo, and Izuku had been unable to finish what he was trying to tell you, he had been acting quite different around you. As if there was something more he wished to tell you that night, but he couldn't bring himself to let the words out. The distance between us doesn't matter anymore, Name. I don't think it ever did. Even when you were gone. Because even though there were hundreds of miles between us, they didn't feel significant because of how much you meant to me. How much you still mean to me, he says gently, anxious to speak any louder. He had already entered his room, sitting down on his bed, looking up at you with the same eyes that haunted your dreams for the 10 years you were gone. But even though the distance felt insignificant, in every silent moment, I couldn't help but miss you tenfold. He continues, voice shaking slightly, but not once does he look away from you. You couldn't find it in yourself to reply to him. Usually it was Izuku who was at a loss for words, not you. Your pupils simply dilated slightly at his words as you continued to gaze at him. You both let the silence grow heavy upon you, like a weighty blanket that was more of a comfort than a burden. You give him a small smile before gently nudging his shoulder with yours as you flopped down onto the bed next to him. Let's not focus on the times where I was gone, okay? Let's talk about you. You began hurriedly, eager to change the subject to something slightly less emotional. Izuku didn't seem fazed by your sudden switch in subject. Instead, his eyes lit up as his smile widened. Yeah, I'm glad we'll be going together. I don't think I could handle being in the same class as Bakugo again without you. I'm pretty sure he's out for my blood. You nod in agreement. Yeah, I was thinking about him the other day. There's no way he's not going to get into class 1A. So we will all definitely be seeing much more of each other. But hey, I'll be there to protect you. I'll be like your own personal guardian angel or something, you say teasingly, allowing yourself to fall back to lay down on his bed. Upon seeing you lie down, he also gingerly shifts himself so that he's lying on his back beside you, however leaving enough room between the two of you so that you weren't touching. I'm just still in shock I actually got in, he says with a soft smile on his face, looking up at the ceiling. Oh yeah, how did you get in anyway? I thought you said you didn't defeat any robots? So how did you even get any points? No offense. Apparently there are things called rescue points. I managed to save this girl from the robot with 0 points, and apparently that was worth something, he began, blushing slightly as he mentioned the girl. Wait, seriously? Weird, same thing happened to me. Except I was the one getting saved, you say, reminiscing on what had happened during the exam and when Bakugo had rescued you. But then you side-eye him and smirk teasingly, so you saved a girl. Izuku, I never knew you had such game. Good for you. The faint blush on his cheeks turned into a raging red color as he grabbed a pillow and shoved it over his face. It's not like that. I mean, she was super sweet though. I was told that after the exam she asked one of the teachers from UA if she could transfer some of her points to me, says quietly, voice muffled by the pillow. What? No way, seriously? She must like you a lot, you say, voice slightly high-pitched than usual due to your surprise. However, despite your initial shock, you swiftly went back to teasing him. You like it, you say, laughing lightly, elongated your vowels to piss him off even more. No, I don't, he exclaims, throwing the pillow off his face to turn to you with an exasperated look. I barely even know her. So? You can't just choose who you have a crush on. It just happens. You say, rolling your eyes, just admit it. I told you I don't. She isn't the one I like, He rambles, hurriedly trying to explain to you that he doesn't just spontaneously develop crushes on every random girl he meets. What do you mean she isn't the one you like? Does that mean you do like someone? You gasp happily. Oh, is Zuko, tell me who the lucky girl is, or boy? He shakes his head gently and looks away, a solemn demeanor engulfing his expression. She's a friend. And I'm like 99% sure she likes someone else, he says dolefully, meeting your eyes again. Oh, unrequited love? That's so tragic, Izuku. It's like we are in a fanfiction right now. You chatter excitedly before forcing yourself to stop smiling once you see how genuinely upset he looks. Well, whoever this girl is, she's an idiot for not seeing how great you are. In fact, any girl who can't see how awesome you are is a moron. She sounds kinda dense. He blushes faintly and looks away. Yeah. He sighs, but it doesn't matter. I don't plan on giving up, he says with a look of determination. That's the spirit, Izuku. I'm sure she'll fall in love with you the second you confess. You say with a cheery tone before clutching your hands together and pouting dramatically. Now tell me who she is. I can't handle the suspense. He finally lets out a laugh, dropping his previous expression of sadness. No, wait. I can't tell you. Boring. Why can't you tell me? We've been friends for ages. You whine mournfully, subtly shifting your hand closer to his before pulling him in closer to you. He silently allows you to pull him in close. But he doesn't reciprocate the embrace. Instead, he simply looks at you with an expression of longing and regret. One day I'll tell you. When I'm ready, he says quietly, his breathing shallow and fast. You roll your eyes but drop the subject. Besides, you have bigger things on your mind, such as UA and Bakugo. So that finally months later, on the night before your first day at UA, you are ready to face anything that threatens your chances of becoming a successful hero and perhaps reforming the broken bond between you and Bakugo. You thought that even after all these months from when you got accepted until your first day, you would have at least somewhat emotionally prepared yourself for your first day at UA. However, you in fact did not. And now, in consequence for that, you are currently sitting on the floor with your back against the wall, rocking back and forth out of stress. Sure, we all get stressed when going to a new school, but this is a bit of an overkill. Sighing to yourself in resignation, you eventually get up from off the floor and head over to where the UA uniform stood. As you put it on, you began to realize just how much you wished you had bought the trousers instead of the skirt. You mutter under your breath to yourself, why is the skirt so dim and short? You began to pace around the room, shooting daggers at your full body mirror. Yikes, who even designed this? After you had accepted the miserable truth that your skirt looked more like a belt, you headed off for UA. Upon walking towards the school up ahead in the distance, you could somewhat make out a familiar red-haired figure. Squinting slightly at him, you pinch the bridge of your nose as you try to remember his name. Kirishima. You speak up once you remember, jogging towards him. The boy looked back at you, locking eyes with you, a hint of confusing in his gaze. It's me name. From the entrance exam. You say, cheeks going red from slight embarrassment in case he didn't remember you. But finally the confused look from his eyes fades away as he flashes a grin at you. Of course I remember you, he says, clearly excited to see you. He briefly looks you up and down before doing a double take and glancing at your skirt. He blushes slightly before forcing himself to look away. Uniform looks good on you, he mumbles, scratching the back of his head. You give him a look of disbelief. Really? You know what? I'll take the compliment. You give him the benefit of the doubt and dismiss the whole skirt thing. Which class are you in? I'm in 1A, huh? Surprisingly, you ask as you continue to walk with Kirishima close by your side. He lets out a laugh as he glances at you, trying not to let his eyes stray away from your face. No way, we are in the same class. You let out a sigh of relief. Thank God. The more people I know, the less awkward I'll be. I want to make a good impression after all. He gives you a pat on the back before locking eyes with you. You don't have to worry about giving a good impression or not. You left a good impression on me after all, he says, laughing nervously, cheeks flushed as he glances away from you. You roll your eyes teasingly. Well, I hope so. Guess I'll just stick around with you and my one other friend in class then, huh? Finally, after arriving at UAU and Kirishima, make your way to your classroom. Taking a deep breath in, you turn to Kirishima and back up behind him, ladies first. You say as you give him a little reassuring shove towards the door. No way in hell were you going in first. Relax, name. If anyone bothers you, just call my name and I'll come find you, he says, giving you a thumbs up before striding into the door. Before smacking your head against the wall in preparation, you follow him into the classroom. It had been 10 months since you last saw Bakugo. The last time being on that night at the bridge. However, you could tell he was in the classroom before even seeing him. Because in typical Bakugo fashion he was, as usual, having a full-on yelling match with one of your other classmates. I'll put my feet on this desk if I demon well want to, he snaps, not having noticed you yet. Glaring at a boy stood next to where he sat, clearly fuming. It is disrespectful to school property. Besides, that is someone else's desk you're putting your shoes on. And where on earth is your tie? We are representing UA and you are not doing a very good job at it. The glasses boy says, voice loud and authoritative. Furrowing your eyebrows slightly, you clamp your hands over your ears, staying close to Kirishima. Oh Izuku, when are you gonna get here? You mumble to yourself. For F's sake, you seriously think I give a dimmin about dash? Bakugo paused his yelling at the boy as he finally caught sight of you. His posture slackened slightly and his shoulders became marginally less tense as he locked eyes with you. He grit his teeth and crosses his arm, completely disregarding the glasses guy who was still trying to lecture him as he continued to look at you. Awkwardly you smile at him and wave gently, hey Bakugo, how was your hole? Before you could even finish your sentence he had already grabbed hold of your arm and was dragging you out the classroom. Once in the empty hallway he had shoved you against the wall, wrapping both hands around your wrists. You can't keep doing this every time we meet. You don't have to be so hostile, you say, letting yourself go limp against him, giving up on any chance of overpowering him. In fact, you weren't even angry at his manhandling anymore, just fed up. Give up the act. I thought I made it clear I didn't want you anywhere near me. You never learned, do you? He says mockingly, pressing you harder against the wall. I'm going to make one thing clear. And you're going to do exactly as I say, or I swear to God I'll blast your face off. Before you could reply he glances at you up and down, and just like Kirishima he quickly looked back at your face, trying not to look down. You say you don't want me around, but you can't seem to stop looking at me, you retort, before finally shoving him off, you taking advantage of his distracted mind. He backs off a few steps, before turning to go back to the classroom. With his back turned to you he calls out, just stay out of my way and I'll leave both you and that idiot Deku you seem to like so much alone. Then he walks back into the classroom, presumably to go back to yelling at the others. You know you should accept his ultimatum. Not only for your benefit but Izuku's too. Knowing that even if you did pursue Bakugo, your relationship would only become more toxic and difficult. But regardless, despite knowing that you should focus on Izuku, you couldn't just give up like that. So after shaking away the feeling of his hands on you trying to keep your heart rate from going up, you turn round to re-enter the classroom. However, you seemingly have underestimated the force by which you had turned around, and instead of walking into the classroom you had, with full force, smashed right into a complete stranger. Before either of you could manage to stabilize yourselves you had already fallen onto the ground, with you, unfortunately, landing right on top of him. Great first impression chapter text. Well shit. Not only have you already succeeded at making Bakugo dislike you more than he initially did, you were also currently sat on top of a complete stranger. With both legs on either side of his torso and both hands splayed across his chest. Your face immediately flushes red. Yikes, you must seem like such a pervert right now. Oh my days, I didn't see that you were there. Demon, I hope you didn't fall too hard. I'm so sorry I dash, but you stop. In the middle of your frenzied babble you finally look the poor guy's face for the first time, and God was he good looking. His hair was evenly divided, hair white on his right side and red on his left. His left eye was a bright turquoise whilst his right eye was a dull gray color with a notable scar on the left side of his. You stare at him with your mouth agape for around 10 seconds longer before the stranger shifts his arms behind him, lifting himself up into a sitting position. Meanwhilst you, clearly not taking the hint, remain right where you're sitting. His eyes scan you up and down, glancing at you with a deadpan expression before locking eyes with you. "Get off," he says, his calm tone tainted with a mild hint of irritation. "Now." Biting the inside of your cheek in embarrassment, you gently shift in your position, and suddenly the both of you became very aware of what you were sitting on top of, and the fact you were wearing a skirt did not help the situation. So hurriedly, you stand up and back off. The boy, in which, did not seem fazed in the slightly at the fact that he was just groped by some random stranger. Or raising your hands next to your head as if at gunpoint, you give him a sheepish smile. "Sorry." You force a nervous chuckle, trying to lighten the mood as you watch him get up. As he dusts off his uniform, his stoic expression betraying nothing of what he actually felt. "I'm not a pervert, I swear." You say, your smile fading slightly as you take note of that fact that your little joke did not amuse the boy in the slightest. I had no idea you were standing there. Are you okay?" After a long pause he spoke up again, his voice distant and cold. "It's a surprise they even let people like you into you. You're so excitable." You let out a confused gasp. The F? Did he mean people like you? Letting out a dry laugh, you drop your arms and fold them, trying your best to look unbothered at the insult. "You know what? You're not even that good looking." You clear your throat momentarily. You knew that what you said was a massive life. Because in actuality the guy looked like some sort of fairy tale prince. Like someone straight from some sort of romance novel, but we digress. And the fact that your personality also SCKiss makes you even more of a bad person. He gives you another annoyed look before letting out an exasperated sigh. He breathes in as if about to say something else, but then promptly decides against it and brushes past you, heading for the classroom. And suddenly, his appearance was completely overshadowed by his personality. Who cares if the guy was exactly your type? What a JRK. The whole ordeal with Bakugo had already set you on edge, but this whole interaction with this half-and-half guy was your last straw. Swiftly you turn back round and yell out at him, "There's no need to be a freaking jerk." He doesn't even spare you a second glance for your little outburst. Instead he rolls his eyes before entering the classroom, shutting the door in your face. Biting hard on your bottom lip, you angrily kick the wall beside the door with excruciating force. Bad idea. That hurt. Keeling over in pain, you gently prod your foot through your shoe. Before gathering up the rest of your fractured ego, you step back into the classroom, accepting the fact that you had just probably made yet another enemy, an enemy who most likely thought you were a pervert too. Oh well. The rest of the morning, surprisingly, went by smoothly. Upon Izuku's arrival into the classroom, ignoring the fact that Bakugo had yet another tantrum upon seeing the poor guy, you had grown visibly more comfortable in the new environment. Izuku just seems to have that effect on you. So from then on you decide to make it your initiative to stick right by him. Then the moment you've been excited for the most finally arrives, the first practical lesson, where you'll be able to show off your quirk to the rest of your classmates. And show off to the scumbag who said you shouldn't even be here. Demen, a whole new enemy, and you don't even know his name yet. This is a new low. Even for you. Izuku. You say happily as he comes out into one of UA's many outdoor practice areas. Bounding towards him, you gain a steady hold of his shoulders. Blushing faintly, he grins back at you. "Name. You seem pretty excited to start training, huh? This is our first ever practical lesson, so we need to be able to show Mr. Aizawa that we can perform," he says, his concern evident, allowing you to hold on to him. "This is so typical of you, Izuku. Stop worrying and enjoy yourself." A smug smile grows on your lips as you lean in closer and whisper, "Besides, don't you want to look good for that little crush of yours? I saw you talking to that cute brunette earlier." You giggle as you see the gears in his head whirring as he tries to convince you otherwise. You hear a scoff behind the two of you, so reluctantly you let go of Izuku, peering over his shoulder to get a look at the person behind him. Keep the PDA to a minimum. This is school, not FNG dating show. Bakugo sneers, eyes flickering between you and Izuku. God, I should have expected this. You two just can't keep your hands off each other. Rolling your eyes at him, you cross your arms and glare at him. "I'm not in the mood for this right now, Bakugo. I don't even want to fight with you. But you keep making things so difficult for us. I just want you to understand how sorry I am for something I shouldn't even be sorry about anymore, because I've already apologized so many DM times and dash." Everyone quiet. The authoritative voice of Aizawa shuts both you and Bakugo up. Bakugo simply glances at you one last time before sighing softly and walking off to the back of the group. So subtly, you take Izuku's hand before leading the two of you away from Bakugo. To the front of the group you take your place near Kirishima since he is seemingly the only other guy you know, apart from Izuku, that doesn't want to tear your head off. I won't tolerate unnecessary chatter in my classes. For our first lesson we will be doing a series of physical tests, each one will center around a different physical attribute. Therefore the final results of these tests will be fair. You hear a quiet murmur of excited whispering wave across the group. Oh, and one other thing. You look up at the teacher in interest, nervous to hear the plot twist. Whoever scores last in these tests will be expelled. Effective immediately. Fuck chapter text. Whilst you had taken on the role of being Izuku's hype man, as it was his turn to hurl the cricket ball into oblivion, Kirishima makes his way through the crowd to get closer to you before tapping your shoulder to get your attention. Hey name, what was up with you and that blonde guy this morning? He grabbed you pretty aggressively, I was just wondering. If you were okay? And what was his name dash, he asked, pinching the bridge of his nose in thought before suddenly remembering. Oh, Bakugo, I think it was, he says, grinning to himself, proud that he remembered such a trivial detail. You laugh lightly to yourself at his joy before rolling your eyes slightly and answering. Don't worry about me, I'm not hurt. And yeah. About that it's kind of a personal thing, haha. You say sheepishly, scratching the back of your neck, turning your head away from him. He lets out a little, oh, of understanding. So, he's your ex, I assume? You nod your head, not having processed in your head about what he had just said. Yeah. Wait, what? It took you around 5 seconds to register what he had just said. Raising your hands slightly and shaking your head quickly, a bright blush painting your face. Kirishima simply smirks in amusement. No. No, no, no. You say quickly, stumbling over yours words, your face bright red. But it was pointless. It was already too late. Kirishima had already given you a comforting pat on the back that told you that he definitely thought that you and Bakugo had had some sort of romantic connection in the past. And that he would probably not believe you if you tried to tell him that you two were just friends. Before you had the chance to explain the truth, Aizawa had already called him over as it was his turn to do the first test. However, before Kirishima left, he turned to you one last time to say, for what it's worth. You can do way better than that guy, he prompted. Blushing lightly, don't lose hope name. You opened your mouth to retaliate but he had already left. Face palming aggressively you decide to cast your mind away from both Kirishima and Bakugo. You awkwardly glance over at the rest of your classmates standing a few feet away from you. You've come to terms with the fact that your only close friend in your new class is Izuku. Sure, you had Kirishima too, but maybe it would be nice to finally make some female friends too. However, as of a few months ago, you had come to realize that you weren't exactly the best at socializing. Were you good at making friends? Did you have any good conversation starters? Were you going to go up to a random classmate anyway and make conversation despite the fact that you'll probably make things awkward as shit? Hell yeah. So, you gathered up the rest of what was left of your broken ego and hesitantly scanned the group until your eyes locked onto a girl with shortish dark indigo hair with plug-like earphone jacks hanging from her ears. Unlike most of the others, she was much quieter than the rest. Not overly chatty or loud. So you brush aside the fact that you lack many basic social skills and begin to make your way towards her. However, before you could even begin to take one step in her direction, you stood still when you felt a light tug from the back of your gym trousers, so you turn around to face no one? You scratch your head in confusion as you scan the area looking for who was trying to grab your attention. Why hello there, a voice spoke. It was overly sultry, and the owner of the voice was very clearly trying his hardest to make it sound as low as possible. However, you still couldn't see anyone. A slight huff of annoyance could be heard. Down here. Adjusting your line of sight, you glance downwards to see the owner of the voice. A short guy, around 3 feet 6 inches, was looking up at you with a smirk on his face. His weight was shifted to the side as he was leaning against the fence that surrounded the area. With one hand he brushes back his hair, which was in fact just 3 purple balls placed on his head, and then with ease he gently pushes himself off of the fence, walking over to you. You tried to suppress the laugh that was trying so hard to come out. You've had guys try to flirt with you before, especially back at the academy, using the same cheesy pickup lines, running a hand through their hair as they tried to look as nonchalant and uninterested as possible. However, this guy was something completely different. Are you talking to me? You say, awkwardly shifting your weight from one foot to the other as you watched him walk towards you. Which, by the way, was taking forever for him to do. He had very short legs. Who else would I be talking to? Cece lady, he said, running his tongue over his teeth in an attempt to look as suave as possible. Safe to say it wasn't working. Wow. You certainly have a way with words. Don't you dash, you say, voice completely hoarse. Biting the inside of your cheek, you forced yourself to stop smiling out of secondhand embarrassment. You clear your voice slightly and back up a few steps as the short guy was trying to get even closer. So, how about I get those digits, baby? Before the guy could even finish his sentence, a long winding earphone jack had already poked him several times in the face, causing him to try and slap them away, cutting his sentence short. Leave her alone, sleaze. And before you could even process what had happened, an arm had already grabbed a hold of you and was currently dragging you away from the strange purple boy. Rubbing your eyes gently with the back of your sleeve, you lock eyes with your savior. Immediately recognizing her earphone jacks and her dark indigo hair, you smile faintly to yourself. The girl flushes slightly before dropping your arm, refusing to make direct eye contact. Sorry for grabbing you. That guy gave me weird vibes. And I saw him looking up someone's skirt earlier. She pauses her sentence and clears her throat before nodding at you. I'm Kyokajire. You laugh lightly at her words. No way, don't apologize. I wouldn't have known how to have gotten away from him if it wasn't for you. You say, brushing your hair back. Your cheeks flushing slightly out of nervousness. Diamen, you really need to learn how to socialize. I'm Name.